Hey everybody. When I did my which clean flight controller is best video, one of the first things I did as I was sort of cutting things from the list to see which was left is I got rid of the chips that had the MCU6500 chip. And I did that because that chip has a worse noise spec, 0.10 degree per second versus 0.05 degree per second, than the other two chips in the roundup, the 6050 and the 6000. I worry that I may have contributed a little bit to sort of a reductionist thinking among my viewers, and it seems to be that there seems to be a little bit of a backlash against the 6500 chip, and I worry that I may have contributed to that a little bit. And I kind of want to walk that back. I want to clarify that. So it's a fact that the 6500 has a worse noise rating, but it is still unclear as to whether that results in worse flight performance. I was talking to Hydra, Dominic Clifton. I was talking to Dominic Clifton the other day. Name drop. No. I happened to be emailing him the other day, and in the context of that email, I said, well, let's take it as long as I've got his ear. I asked him, dude, why did you put the 9250 chip in your brand new top of the line hot snot flight control board if it's got the worst noise spec? And by the way, the real appeal of the 6500 or the 9250 is that it supports SPI and can do 8 kilohertz gyro sync in theory. And by the way, in the same way that I'm not sure whether the worst noise spec is really hurting flight performance all that much, I'm also not sold, and I've talked about this in other videos, I'm not sold as to whether 8 kilohertz gyro sync is like the be all end all of flight performance, depending on what you have to trade off to get it. So I said to him, why did you put this chip with the worst noise spec in your board and then not even use the one really good thing that it brings to the table? Why? And he said, and by the way, I asked him if I could put this quote on the record, and he said yes. So here it is, straight from the horse's mouth. He said, I wanted to make a mini all-in-one board, 10 degrees of freedom. In other words, he wanted to have the barometer and the magnetometer. The 9150, which is this one, this is the same chip that's in the NAS 32, except the 9150 also has a barometer and a magnetometer, and it has the better noise spec. He says the 9150 is not recommended for new designs. That means it's basically at the end of its service life, and if InvenSense is going to stop making it, and they're giving the manufacturers a good long time to work it out of their designs before it becomes unavailable. He says the design was made well in advance of people wanting 2 or 8 kilohertz, so that's why he used I2C. And the I/O capability is unsurpassed for a mini board, and that meant that using SPI was not possible. And as I've sort of mentioned offhand in other videos, the reason for that is that if you're going to use SPI, you have to use more pins on the board. SPI requires 3 pins plus 1 additional pin for every peripheral, whereas I2C uses 2 pins shared between all peripherals. And the fact is that chip only has so many I/O pins before you're just out, okay? So that's why you couldn't use SPI. People wanted 3 unshared serial ports, SD card, USB, PPM, 8 outputs, LEDs, etc., and that was the chip that could do it. It flies, and my and other very good pilots tests excellently, and he also said, I've won races using this chip. So, don't write off a board just because it has the 6500 or the 9250 gyro, at least until a little more data is in on how tunable those boards are. Some people have noted that the Lux is coming with some rubber grommets, some rubber mounting grommets, and have speculated that that is to help mitigate some of this worse noise spec. And to that I say, okay, so what? It comes with the rubber grommets. You know, if it still flies good and you have to put rubber grommets on it instead of hard mounting it, well, I mean, it comes with the grommets, who cares, right? So at the end of the day, I've always said that flight performance is what matters. And it's very easy for us to get very, very focused on marketing numbers and specs. And it's not that specs and marketing numbers don't matter, but that we shouldn't get so caught up in them that we forget about what really matters, and that's flight performance. So, like if we look at the new board from the new SP Racing, the SP3 Mini, right? It's got onboard SPI SD card reader for black box logging at full rate, even at high loop times. Wow. That's fantastic. For a guy like me who does a lot of tuning and a lot of black box logging, that's fantastic. And I would take a chance on a worse noise spec. And maybe I have to, I have to filter my gyro just a little bit more. And I have just a little bit more latency in my PID loop. And as a result, I have slightly more prop wash oscillation. Okay, well, guess what? I've got that lovely SD card reader, and I will take it. Okay, I wanted to get that out because I seems like, and maybe it's just a few people who care a lot and talk a lot. I'm certainly a person who cares a lot and talks a lot. Maybe the opinions are getting amplified, but I don't want the message to trickle out that a chip with the 6500 or the 9250 is bad and should be rejected. Because there are good boards that are worth your consideration that have those chips in them, especially if those boards have other compelling features, like I don't know, like whatever it is. Okay, so there you go. Hope that was interesting. Hope that was helpful. Happy flying.